Joining me now to discuss, Daniel Newman, founding partner and principal analyst of Futurum Research. Welcome to the show, Daniel. Can you walk us through the findings of this report?
Yeah, so the findings specifically focused in on the automotive industry, which saw the numbers double over the last actually only about 3 months. It originally came in about 110 billion was what we thought had been lost due to this chip shortage. And now we're seeing that number jump to over 200 billion. And this just has to do with so much uncertainty, delay. This is impacting inflation. Consumers that are out there trying to buy vehicles used are finding it extraordinarily overpriced. If you're trying to find it new, it's very difficult to get them. And by the way, this isn't just about the automotive space. This is going to impact everything. We're hearing multiple reports from the White House, how this is going to affect Christmas shopping. And then, of course, Elon Musk comes in and talks about how it may be fixed next year, but the consensus of CEOs across the semiconductor industry and across much of high tech seems to believe it's going to linger on longer than that.
So the White House did meet with leaders of the auto and tech industries on the chip crisis last week. We followed that very closely on Cheddar News. What do we know about the outcomes of that meeting? Did anything tangible actually come out of it?
Well, I think that the administration is still really pushing hard for Congress to enact that $52 billion bill. I think it's called the Chips for America Act. I think we know we need this to happen. The problem is there's kind of these two different forces. There's the immediate impact that the shortage is causing, that's causing the inflation. It's causing a lack of availability of not just automotive, but like I said, computers, iPhones and devices. I mean, we've seen certain companies have weathered this storm better than others, but overall, the ability to build this back, the ability to actually build a new fab takes years. So while we hear things like, oh, this could, I think Musk said, like I said, next year, it's going to take multiple years. And the other thing is you can't just take a process, an old process, for instance, a sensor that's used for brakes on an automobile and put it on a newer process. So even if in Taiwan, we've been able to manufacture more chips using leading nodes, 7, 10, 14 nanometer, not to get too technical, you can't take a 28 nanometer process, which is an older process that's used for some of these sensors in automobiles, and just put it on a new process. That takes time. It costs millions and millions of dollars to do this. And on top of that, a lot of times when you change these processes, things break. So there's all kinds of conflicts in this supply chain. And we just waited too long. And of course, COVID actually, we kind of did this to ourselves. We put all this money back into the economy. People spent it on, they bought cars, they bought phones, they bought cameras, they bought laptops, and all of these things use chips. And so we've kind of created this circle, and we outsourced most of our ability to manufacture over the last few decades. So a lot of factors all coming together at one time, and this is going to take some time to fix.
That was my next question. You actually teed me up for it, because the gap between ordering a chip and, of course, getting it delivered stretched to 21 weeks just last month in August. Those wait times, I don't have to tell you, are expected to increase. Do you predict this problem will be resolved, and when?
Yeah, I do believe it will be resolved. I think everybody agrees. I think there's a lot of effort, a lot of very brilliant minds all coming together. But it could be a few years, and I think the consensus continues to stretch out. I remember earlier in the pandemic listening to CEOs of big chip makers from companies like Qualcomm and AMD and Intel, really kind of thinking, oh, probably later this year and next year. And you're hearing all of those executives, companies, you're hearing representatives from government, all kind of showing that this could extend out multiple years, because like I said, these fabs, like Intel has stepped up and said they're going to build more fabs here in the United States. TSMC is building here in the States, Samsung. But the ability to expand production doesn't happen in a short period of time. You're talking about multiple years to build out and to expand this capacity. And then, of course, there's got to be a little bit of concern with the relationship between China and Taiwan, because so much of our manufacturing of leading edge happens in Taiwan right now. And of course, we know that conflict could linger and could become a bigger problem at any moment in time. And that could test our supply chain and our resilience even more.
Very recently, Elon Musk has called this chip shortage a short-term problem. Tesla's Shanghai factory is expected to produce 300,000 cars in the first months of next year. Despite this shortage, which seems Hard to do, but why do you think Musk is so confident that this issue will be resolved when so many other tech leaders in all sectors are not? They're very worried about this.
Well, first of all, I think the problem is different for every company. We've seen a lot of big tech companies that are chip dependent have extraordinary results over the past several quarters. We've seen how well companies like Microsoft and Apple have done. We've seen the performances of chip makers like NVIDIA and AMD. A lot of them have managed the supply chain very well. And like I said, the challenges at the leading edge, which are what many of these companies are building around, seems to not be quite as problematic as some of these lagging edge, which are many of these parts and pieces used to power vehicles, for instance. Elon Musk is a very smart person. He's potentially managed his supply chain very well. The volume of vehicles that he's producing, perhaps through his team, through his operations, and through the relationships he's had, he's been able to manage that shortage to be able to deliver to the promise. Now, again, what if suddenly the orders went up by 25, 50, or 100%? Would he still be able to manage the same way? But if he has a great handle on his forecast, has managed his relationships well, we've definitely seen some companies manage this better than others.
Daniel Newman, founding partner and principal analyst of Futurum Research. Thank you so much for your time and insight, Daniel. We appreciate it.